Well, it's a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us on this independent off-tube studio commentary. Our referee, Andy Madley, is just about ready to get this game underway. We're at the Gtech Community Stadium. Brentford are taking on Brighton. And two sides that really have been very difficult to predict over the last 7 or 8 games or so. Brentford seeing a little bit of a recovery since that difficult period leading up to Christmas, but still not enough wins really for Thomas Frank's liking. They need a few more just to really get themselves further away from relegation trouble. And Brighton, they've been a very difficult side to call this season as well. Some excellent performances, but some very ordinary ones as well, including that reversal away to Fulham at the start of March. Going out of the Europa League as well in that two-legged game against Roma, so they need to try and recover a bit of league form. It's myself, Paul Szczerbakowicz, and Tom McGarry taking you through the action. Tom, we both said before the game there should be a few goals in this one.
Yeah, they're really difficult to predict, these two sides. Yes, results for Brentford of late haven't been that great, but there's still been some decent performances. They've still been scoring goals. They were brilliant against Manchester United at the weekend. Very unlucky not to win that game. So if they can continue that good form into this game and Brighton are at their best potentially, then yeah, it could be a really entertaining contest. We're certainly hoping so. We don't want a damp squib. We want a really good open game. Brighton have the incentive of moving into the top 7 with a victory. Brentford, another win. If they could win this one, you'd feel they're even closer to securing their Premier League status for another season. So incentive for both, and that should make for an entertaining watch.
We're certainly hoping so. As you mentioned, Brentford did very well against Manchester United, probably very unlucky to concede first in that game in injury time and still coming back to get an equaliser. I thought Brighton did very well against Liverpool in patches as well, just probably fell away a little bit in the second half. But Brighton are on the attack now, down the left-hand side. João Pedro back to Simon Adringa. Just holding things up here in midfield is Pascal Gross. Igor Julio with the start this evening on the left-hand side. Going towards Van Hecke. That's a short pass from Van Hecke. Needed a recovery challenge there from Lewis Dunk. And then another recovery challenge from Carlos Baleba. And Brighton just about keep possession in midfield. And now things open up for the visitors. It's Buonanotte pushing forward into the penalty area. Finds Adringa. Back to Adam Lallana onto his left foot. He puts the ball into the penalty area. It's missed by Lewis Potter. It will still be kept alive on the right-hand side, right by the corner flag here by Joel Veltman. Veltman trying to turn away from Lewis Potter. Does well actually to keep that ball in play, trying to use the help of Buonanotte before it eventually goes out of play. Just to remind you, it is Flekken in goal for Brentford, a back three of Jorgensen, Ayer and Collins. Roslev and Lewis Potter are the two wide men, with Jensen, Janel and Jan Moliak as the midfield three. Wissa and Tony are the two up front for Brighton. It is Verbruggen in goal, back for Veltman, Van Hecke, Dunk and Igor Julio. Pascal Gross and Baleba are the two holding midfielders, with Buonanotte, Lallana and Adringa as the attacking midfield three. João Pedro getting the starts for Brighton this evening. Vitaly Janel was just brought down there by João Pedro, who had a really good goal-scoring vein of form earlier in the season. Just seemed to completely fall away. There was an injury there as well.
Yeah, and it's big for Brighton that he's back, if he can rediscover that form that he showed over the early to mid part of the campaign. Scored a lot of goals during their Europa League run as well. So yeah, it's good for João Pedro to be back in the Brighton lineup. Gives them an extra bit of goal-scoring impetus. I know they score a lot more goals these days under Roberto De Zerbi, but they still spurn a lot of chances as well, so him back in the side is a real plus.
Certainly is. You're absolutely right that Brighton have got all the creativity, you feel, just sometimes lacking a little bit in terms of the finishing. Evan Ferguson seems to be the next big thing for the Seagulls, which hasn't really had as much first team time this season as perhaps many would have expected. But his compatriot in the Republic of Ireland team there, Nathan Collins, winning the ball back for Brentford in midfield under a bit of pressure from Buonanotte, going back towards Christopher Ayer. Brentford in possession on the halfway line. 4 minutes gone, goalless here at the Gtech. Goalless also after 5 minutes at the Emirates. Arsenal against Luton. That game is also available on our service, as is the 8:15 kickoff. Manchester City taking on Aston Villa. Anke Jorgensen down the right-hand side now, playing a ball over the top. Roslev started to chase it, gave up. Then he started again. He thought he might have a chance, but actually that pass was always over him.
Yeah, he was never going to get on the end of that, Mads Roslev. But yeah, a decent start from both sides, trying to get the ball down and play, as we say. So much on the game for incentive-wise for both teams to really go out for the victory. Early signs, nearly 5 minutes on the clock, are that we should be in for an open and entertaining contest.
Certainly hope so, as Brighton taking a short goal kick and two Brentford players pushing to try and win that ball straight away. Verbruggen does clear it up towards the half line. Jan Moliak now for Brentford, fighting Ivan Toney. He runs straight into Carlos Baleba, And he does well. Baleba there just to drop a shoulder, gets away from Yano. Then a pass is stopped by Ivan Toney. It's a bit frenetic in midfield. Yarmolenko runs into Baleba as well, but eventually Brighton slow things down, going back towards their own penalty area. Igor Julio under pressure there from Roslev. Finds a good pass down the left channel there for João Pedro, but that's also a good challenge from Christopher Ayer. There was a little bit of talk just before kickoff about Ivan Toney not being out for the warm-up. There was a rumour that he might not even be in the starting 11. He is out there and he has started, but it does sound as though he wasn't in the warm-up at all.
Yeah, whether there's an injury knock there, a concern, he needs to receive a little bit of treatment or be checked over by the medical team, and he's not really had any involvement in the game so far. In fairness to Brighton, they've seen a lot of the ball inside Brentford's half in these opening 5.5 minutes, but it's one to keep an eye on because it would be a blow if Toney had to go off early.
Certainly would be. He's been instrumental for Brentford since he's come back. He's dropped off a little bit in a couple of the games, but generally speaking, having him in the team, of course, is better than him not being in the team. As João Pedro pushing towards the edge of the Brentford penalty area, he hits the deck. Andy Madley telling him to get up. There may have been scope for a free kick there. It certainly wasn't inside the box. Never any danger of it being a penalty, but there was certainly some suggestion it might have been a foul. Brighton have it back straight away. Brentford perhaps just guilty of clearing it and not really having a plan to try and keep possession in midfield. It's with Pascal Gross now. He puts across into the penalty area. Good header away by Collins. And it's picked up by Jensen now, trying to bring the ball out for Brentford. He runs straight into Carlos Baleba. He's never going to get a threat. I'm not even sure if he wanted a free kick there. He just loses the ball as the Danish international. Gross inside now to Buonanotte. Back to Pascal Gross. Igor Julio joining in midfield, playing a ball across. It looked like there was a handball there from Buonanotte, and it was 2 yards in front of the referee. He couldn't really ignore that one.
Yeah, he's almost just lost his bearings really there, Buonanotte, as he tried to bring that under control and a clear handball. But yeah, it's been a bright opening in particular from Brighton, moving the ball around quickly, crisply, as we come to expect from a Roberto De Zerbi's side. Not really testing Brentford from a defensive point of view as of yet, but you'd say the Seagulls have just shaded proceedings so far.
They have. It's going to be a free kick to Brentford after that handball from Buonanotte. Flekken takes it on the angle, aiming for Ivan Toney. There's a header from Van Hecke just in front of him. And Brighton now have it back with Lallana playing it back to Igor Julio. Steps forward does Igor Julio, being closed down by Wissa. But as Tom mentioned there, Brighton have made the better start. 7 minutes into the game, they're just thinking that a little bit more assured in midfield. Brentford at the moment just trying to soak up that Brighton pressure, but they haven't really been able to offer too much by way of attacking possession themselves. Lallana just dropping back into defensive midfield. Baleba going back towards Lewis Dunk. I thought Lewis Dunk got a very harsh appraisal in terms of his performance against Belgium. I mean, obviously it's the harshest critique there can be playing for your country, but certainly over the last couple of years, I think he's done enough to be in there or thereabouts for the England squad. Yeah,
absolutely. And one mistake shouldn't rule him out of contention for international selection in the future, and with the Euros coming up in the summer, based on the great body of work really he's done with Brighton over the last few years. Probably deserved to have a chance before he's actually managed to get it with Gareth Southgate's side. But yeah, one mistake. I'd still expect him to be very much in Southgate's thinking for the Euros.
I think so. I think if you're thinking about 5 or 6 centre backs and maybe cutting that down to 4, you'd think that he'd be definitely in that original 6. Whether or not he makes the final squad, of course, remains to be seen. But his side certainly are making a decent impression here. Brighton in their change black and green strip this evening. And they're back in possession in midfield here with Igor Julio down the left towards Pascal Gross. Plays one over the top for João Pedro. Zanka Jorgensen sort of got his body in the way, but actually, in a way, kept the ball alive for Brighton. It's now with Lallana in towards Buonanotte. Back to Pascal Gross. He's 25 yards out from goal. Just being stood up there by Yarmolenko, but he plays a quick 1-2 with the Dringer and then fires one into the penalty area. João Pedro was on the end of it. Both sets of players have their arms up saying it should be our ball, but the referee deciding it will be a goal kick.
Yeah, again, a good positive play from Brighton, moving it well down the left-hand side. No surprise to see Pascal Gross heavily involved, and he just whips it blind into a dangerous area. He knows there's going to be bodies, teammates in there looking to get on the end of it. João Pedro was the closest to it, but he couldn't quite make desired contact under plenty of pressure from the Brentford defenders that were back there. But yeah, just a further evidence that Brighton have started the game the brighter.
Yeah, couldn't say. I think it was João Pedro that did get the final touch on that in the end. They did go out for a goal kick, but the fact that they aren't getting players in and around the penalty or getting crosses into the box is something that Brentford haven't managed in these first 10 minutes so far. But that's a bit better from the home side now, as it's Lewis Potter to Tony, back to Lewis Potter. He breaks into the penalty area. He's gone quite wide. It's with Wissa now, who goes for the near post, and it's wide. But I tell you what, we barely even finished talking about the fact that Brentford haven't made much of an attacking impact in this game, and they probably put the best move of the game together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful flowing move down the left-hand side. In the build-up, the ball is flashed into the feet of Ivan Toney, and it's exquisite touch round the corner from him into the path of Jensen. He gets out to Lewis Potter, who does well to stay on his feet. He may have been tempted to go down and not ride the challenge of Carlos Baleba, but credit to him, he stayed on his feet, he was honest, gets the cut back into Wissa, who takes it first time he has to. It's a decent effort, but he's just, when he makes contact, he's come past the front post, so it's difficult for him to wrap his left foot around the ball.
To actually still get it on target, absolutely, yeah. But that's what you mentioned there, it was that touch from Ivan Toney that really makes that chance for Brentford. Just takes all the sting out, tees it up for Lewis Potter. But Brighton now with a free kick. It was after an accidental trip really from Zanka Jorgensen. The ball into the box, almost causing problems for Brentford before they eventually clear their lines. Brighton straight back into possession here with Pascal Gross, 40 yards out from goal. In a central position over to the left-hand side for Igor Julio. He's got support there as well from Simon Adringa, very tricky player. Once he gets going, Simon Adringa, very difficult to stop. This occasion he just plays it back into Gross. It's now with Dunk and Van Hecke around about the halfway line. 11 minutes gone, goalless here between Brentford and Brighton, also goalless between Arsenal and Luton. Gross now to Igor Julio. Brentford are back in numbers, but Brighton do have a little bit of space here in terms of moving the ball around just in front of the Bees penalty area. Van Hecke back to Dunk. Wissa was closing this one down, as is Jensen. Brighton forced back into their own half and all the way back to their goalkeeper, Bart Verbruggen. He's been closed down by Wissa as well. Eventually he's hurried into a clearance, but it's a decent clearance over the halfway line, headed forward here by Lewis Potter. Janelt with a touch to Wissa, back to Ivan Toney, who may have been fouled, but it's irrelevant because when Wissa got the ball, he was offside. Yeah,
again, a little bit better though by Brentford, getting the ball down, forcing Brighton to work defensively. I was just thinking there where Bart Verbruggen had the ball for Brighton. Olakuma might be an interested spectator this evening, the Dutch national team manager, with his two potential goalkeepers fighting for the number 1 jersey in action, with Flekken and Verbruggen as a right on cue there. Flekken was almost called into action.
Yes, absolutely. And to say, Mark Flekken didn't make a particularly auspicious start to his Brentford playing career, but he's made some much better performances of late. Notably, ironically, in fact, in that game against Man City, where he conceded 4, but he still actually made some excellent saves. He's grown in confidence. And as I say, Brentford haven't really picked up any kind of steady form throughout this season. It's potentially just with the sides below them in more trouble than themselves. Just need to get a few more wins to make sure that they're in the league for next season, and then start a bit of a rebuilding project in the summer, you would imagine. As Nathan Collins does well to step away from Buonanotte. It's Jensen now over the halfway line. He's got Wissa square. And Janelt and Collins just a bit further behind. It goes to Nathan Collins. He then tries to switch play towards the right-hand side. And it's not a particularly good ball. And Roslev tries to head it out, but it goes out for a throw.
Yeah, it's a crossfield pass from Nathan Collins that was never really on. And Roslev has to fight to get anything on the end of the ball. And he's not able to keep it in play under pressure. But yeah, so nearly moments from both sides trying to get forward. That opportunity for Wissa for Brentford is the best we've seen from either side really going forward so far in the game. It's not quite clicked for either as of yet, but it's bubbling under the surface.
It is. Baleba felt he might have been brought down as he was trying to push forward there for Brighton, and Wissa probably felt the same as he had the ball taken off him there by Buonanotte, but referee consistently says no foul for either side there. Brighton now have the ball and they're in Brentford territory. No real energy about this move though, they're just quite happy to slow things down. It's with Duncan Van Hecke now. Brentford trying to push a bit further forward with the offside. Baleba now into João Pedro. Doesn't quite reach João Pedro, and now Wissa trying to start a counter here for Brentford. He's over the halfway line, plays that ball into space, and he makes the ball himself. Now he's trying to find a way to get through to Ivan Toney. There were too many Brighton bodies in the way, so he just holds the ball up for Jan Moliuk. It's down the right-hand side now for Mats Roslev. Back to Zanka Jorgensen. Certainly the counter-attack has died out for Brentford, but they can try and do things just in possession here down the right for Jorgensen. Back in towards Ayer. Into Jensen now. Brighton trying to push forward with that offside as quickly as they can, just to get their penalty area as safe as possible. Jensen looked up, but again, no real options to try and get forward.
Yeah, there's nothing really on now for Brentford. The initial break forward, a lovely piece of skill and poise from Yoan Wissa, and it looked like he might be able to burst through and really hurt the Brighton backline. But credit to Brighton, they got enough bodies back, forced Wissa to have to come backwards again, and Brentford have kept the ball quite nicely since that point. We've had it for the best part of a minute or so, but they haven't really been able to get in behind Brighton.
No, they haven't. They've won themselves a free kick, though, just as I think it was Simon Adringa just a little bit too keen to try and win that back off Matt Röslep. And that little move there from Yoan Wissa, I quite liked. It was almost like something off the playground where the fast kid knows he could just play the ball into space and he's going to get there before the defender chasing him gets there anyway.
Yeah, he knocked it round the defender. It might have been Lewis Dunk who was closing him down, and he ran the long way round knowing that he was going to have the legs to get there, and he did comfortably. He probably just didn't quite have the stamina then to drive on at the same rate to get himself into the penalty area, which is why he had to check back, and he wasn't able to quite link up with Ivan Toney, who's had that exquisite touch in this game in the build-up to the best chance we've seen so far, but other than that, we've not seen much of him.
Not seen much of him at all, and he's deliberately stood in an offside position as this free kick is being taken. He's still stood in an offside position as Janelt sends this ball forward. Now they've got to get themselves into a position because the ball does reach Collins. Collins then plays it to Zanka Jorgensen, who lifts that ball into the penalty area, headed away by Adringa. Back into midfield here for Matthias Jensen. He's about 30 yards out. He floats one into the box. It's headed forward by Ayer, but there were just too many Brighton bodies. It was almost 2-1, if not more, that ratio there in terms of Brighton players outnumbering the Brentford players. The home side still down the left-hand side here with Lewis Potter. He lifts across into the box, and he really does lift it. It's high and over everybody's head and out for a goal kick.
Yeah, it's a poor final ball there from Keane Lewis Potter. No real pressure on him. He should be delivering a much better cross into the box. But it was better overall from Brentford there. They kept the attack alive from the initial set piece, got some balls into the box. We know they've got that physical presence in there, particularly from set plays when you've got the likes of Collins, Ayer coming forward to join Ivan Toney, who's so good in the air himself. So yeah, better from Brentford. They've felt their way slowly into the game. Brighton probably shaded the opening 10 minutes, but it seems a lot more even now.
It does, yeah. But Brentford, I think, would feel as though they have responded quite well after that good start from Brighton. And there, Brighton playing out from the back, and even before they reached the halfway line, they've given the ball away. A pass to Lallana was just behind him. Jan Moliuk was there to pick that off for Brentford. It's now with Matthias Jensen. He's surrounded by Brighton players, but he uses Vitaly Janelt there, and they're able to get out of that cul-de-sac. It's now Christopher Ayer back to Zanka Jorgensen, and closed down there by Lallana. João Pedro is there putting pressure on as well. For the time being, Brentford not in any rush to send a long ball forward. They've been guilty of that once or twice already in this game, just clearing the ball and then giving it straight back to Brighton. I think they'll be wise not to do that, really. We know how good Roberto De Zerbi's side are at keeping possession. Just as I say that, they do try a long ball towards the edge of the area. It doesn't quite reach Röslep, and it's easy for Adringa to play that one back to Verbruggen. He was being closed down by Toney. Now he's being closed down by Wissa. He just about gets the ball away, and Igor Julio down the left-hand side clears it towards João Pedro. One Brazilian passes to the other, but it's the Norwegian international Christopher Ayer that wins that one back for Brentford. And just the last few minutes, the home side are starting to assert themselves a bit more.
They are seeing plenty of the ball, and as you say, pressing high up the pitch, not allowing Brighton an obvious route out. Brighton, the way they play, we know they're always going to try and get the ball down, even with their goalkeeper and their two centre-backs, and look to play their way forward methodically. Brentford not allowing them to do that in recent plays, and getting a little bit of success. They haven't quite been able to nick the ball back in a really dangerous area, but they're certainly making those Brighton defensive players think.
Well, they are, but now Brentford are in danger of trying to fall in the trap that they're trying to set for Brighton, as in they're sitting back in their own half in possession, and that's encouraging Brighton to push players further forward. There were two occasions there where Brentford very nearly lost the ball at the edge of their own box before eventually Van Hecke just couldn't quite keep his composure, gives away a free kick, which just slows things down here. Free kick for Brentford down the left-hand side. But Anote just getting a bit of a telling off there as well. I'm not really sure why. It seemed like a fairly obvious decision to give the free kick there the way of the home side. Buonanotte, also another player who's been out of the team for quite a while, but just finding his way back into the team recently.
Yeah, and Brighton are not the only side, but they've had to deal with a lot of injuries over the course of this season, getting used to, when they're in Europe, juggling that Thursday, Sunday kind of football. I mean, João Pedro's been out for a while. You've mentioned Buonanotte and Ciso back on the bench this evening. He's missed a lot of football. Akara Mitoma's currently out as well.
He is. I mean, Mitoma's a big miss for Brighton. He was superb for them. And Ciso, of course, scoring one of the goals of the season towards the back end of last season. It was against Newcastle, I think. It was against Newcastle, wasn't it? Absolute pinger from outside the box. We've just seen in Ciso, actually, they showed us shots of that Brighton bench. Brentford, in the meantime, they had that free kick from a long way out. It was on the halfway line, and it was too long in the end. It was sent all the way towards Verbruggen, who was able to make the save. It's now with Igor Julio. Brighton in some midfield possession here down the left-hand side. Gross clipping this over the top. João Pedro does well to shield that ball away from Christopher Ajer, but then he loses the ball, and Yoan Wissa has it for Brentford. Now he wants too much on the ball, too long on the ball there. Adringa easily able to take that back off him. And Dunk now playing it in towards Carlos Baleba. 40 yards out from goal. Baleba square now to Gross. Down the left here towards Adringa. Skips away from two Brentford players quite easily. Back to Baleba now. Gross looked up, thought about crossing it, just plays it cross field though. Van Hecke joining this attack in midfield. Plays it forward to João Pedro. First time ball into Lallana, who turns it back into João Pedro. Lovely touch there from Lallana, but João Pedro just can't quite get away from the Brentford bodies inside the penalty area, and it's cleared up towards the halfway line. Yeah,
again, it's good intricate football from Brighton. When they build up a head of steam, they put the pressure on. Don't get enough shots towards goal, do they? They're guilty sometimes, and on that occasion they're maybe just slightly overdoing it. They're certainly dominating possession still, 62% in their favour, but Mark Flekken, very little to do so far in the Brentford goal.
Yeah, he says had a very quiet evening so far, although in fairness, so is Verbruggen. He's only had to really clear a couple of balls and maybe come out for the odd cross or two. But it's Flekken has got to pay more attention now, because Brighton are at the edge of the Brentford penalty area. Adringa into Pascal Gross. He drops the shoulder, gets away from Yoan Wissa, and then fires towards goal himself, which is an unusually bad decision from Pascal Gross. He normally has it. He puts his hand up twice to apologise there. I think one of those was to apologise to the bench, and the other one to his teammates on the field.
Yeah, I can imagine Roberto Zerbi might have had something to say about that effort from Pascal Gross. As you mentioned, uncharacteristic for him to make the wrong decision. He's moving it onto his unfavoured left foot. He's coming away from the goal as well. Very difficult to wrap your foot around it and generate the required power and accuracy to test the goalkeeper of Mark Flecken's ability, and he sent it way over the top of the crossbar.
I can never. Is he right-footed or left-footed?
I think he's right-footed.
He is right-footed, isn't he? Because he takes his set pieces right-footed, but then he was very comfortable hitting that one with his left foot, and he does have a very good strike with his left foot, albeit he didn't prove it on that occasion. That was a wayward effort there from the German international. But Brighton straight away back on the attack, and it is Pascal Gross again down the left to Simon Adringa. He gets away from Yoan Wissa, and Rosted puts a cross in. It's a better cross this time. It's a looping header from João Pedro from the edge of the penalty area. But in fairness, the way Flekken was sort of running towards that post, I think he knew it was going to go wide.
Yeah, it always looked like it was going well wide of the target. Better, though, from Brighton, a bit more direct. Dinger's ball into the box, and it's a glancing header from João Pedro. His reaction makes you think, oh, that might be a little bit closer than I think it actually ends up. But you can see he's just trying to guide it into the top left-hand corner of Mark Flecken's goal.
If anything, he's got too much of a contact on it, hasn't he? He's probably put a bit too much on that header, and he sent it a little bit too high. But long clearance there from Flekken. Joel Veltman not taking any chances with Tony and Wissa close by. He plays that back towards Verbruggen, who then rolls it out towards Lewis Dunk. Pressure on the Brighton back line, and Dunk getting into a bit of a cul-de-sac here on the Brighton left. He just clears that one down the middle, and he'll be very happy that that pass found Adam Lallana. But then his first time ball is straight through towards Mads Rosted. We're over the halfway mark in this first half. 23 minutes gone. It is goalless between Brentford and Brighton Hove Albion, and it will be Tom to take us through to half-time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. It's been intriguing so far. We've not too much goal-mouth action. We've just mentioned that neither goalkeeper's been overextended in the opening quarter of the contest. The deadlock has been broken in the other 7:30 kickoff, though, in the Premier League, and Arsenal looking to go back to the top of their standings. They lead 1-0 against Luton thanks to a strike from Martin Odegaard. Manchester City against Aston Villa. City, another of the title contenders, there in action. Their game at the Etihad kicks off at 8:15. As in our game, Pascal Gross looking to pull the strings for Brighton, feeds it into João Pedro, whose initial back heel didn't come off, but he gets a second bite of the cherry, finds Gross, who looks to return it to the Brazilian and in behind, well watched by Jorgensen, who can half clear the ball away for Brentford, but Brighton will look to come again, and they work it with Buonanotte into his left, or onto his left foot, stands the ball into the box. Never really had the angle for the cross, and it was difficult for Adam Lallana to make anything of it. Again, Brentford can clear their lines, but this is another decent spell in the game for Brighton.
It is, and they're having more of them in this game so far than Brentford. You have to say that after nearly 25 minutes on the clock, Brighton are certainly shading it in terms of their intent to get further forward, and that's something that will please Roberto De Zerbi, but he would probably have thought that for the amount of possession they've had, they probably should have tested Flekken by now. Yeah,
there's not really been a decent goal-scoring chance for Brighton in the game as of yet. The best opportunity still probably coming the way of Brentford with that Yoan Wissa chance inside the opening 10 minutes as Lallana brings the ball forward now for Brighton, another one of their very two-footed players, linking up with Gross and now into Igor Julio, playing as an almost inverted fullback. The Brazilian just slows things down before rolling it back out to the left-hand side where Gross has pitched up. He'll play a decent ball into Adingra. That's a clever attempted turn from the Ivorian that's been cut out by Röslev. It comes now to the right-hand side where between Yarmoliuk and Mads Röslev they can just slow things down and get Brentford on the ball for the first time in a good few minutes. It's worked out to the left with Nathan Collins via a really nice piece of chest control from Ivan Toney. Now Christopher Ajer, scorer of the equalising goal for Brentford against Manchester United. He's got 2 in 2, hasn't he?
He's got 2 in 2, yeah. We were commentating on him getting that late consolation for Brentford in that defeat to Burnley as well. So that goal less important, but of course a massive equaliser against Manchester United at the weekend. And he's seen plenty of action this evening as well. Yeah, at the heart of the back three for Thomas Frank's side. As, again, Pascal Gross looking to get on the ball for Brighton, dictate the play. He works out Igor on the left and goes back into the now German international, of course. Gross finds Baleba and now across to Buonanotte, who again drops his shoulder onto his favoured left foot, runs into a little bit of traffic, and it was a good challenge from Janelt to stop him, and then the decision goes against Brighton. Baleba has been penalised for a foul that has left Ivan Toney and Vitaly Janelt on the ground. Toney is seemingly okay after the suggestion he might have picked up a knock in the warm-up before the match, but this little knock for Janelt seems to be a bit more concerning. Yeah, he's got a real. He sort of showing the referee as if he was like either he was being pushed or he felt something perhaps going in his ankle joint there. But he's back up on his feet now, and it's amazing, isn't it? Since they brought in that rule that the referee would sort of wait to see whether the physio was needed. And in the last season or so, it's amazing how often the referee just standing over a player, it seems to sort of cure the problem straight away, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the rule changes that to try and combat time wasting. That's probably had a positive effect because you don't need the trainer to come on. Players don't want to have to go off for 30 seconds and wait. As King Lewis Potter, a little bit unfortunate there. Looked like he got away from Joel Veltman and might have been breaking towards the Brighton penalty area, but between the referee and his assistant, they've adjudged the ball had gone out of play on the right-hand side, so it will be a throw-in to Brighton, which Veltman has given to Lallana. He's then gone down looking for a free kick. It's not forthcoming, and Jensen can break into the penalty area. He tries to pull it into Wissa inside the 6-yard box. Bart Verbruggen's handling had to be good, and it was.
It's a good save from Verbruggen. Maybe it's the wrong choice, though, from Jensen. He was playing that across the goalkeeper, and there was the option just to try and play a slightly surer square pass to Ivan Toney, who was at the edge of the 6-yard box.
You would have had a big sigh of relief there when he saw his goalkeeper get his hands on the ball. It would have been Joel Veltman because he was looking to win a free kick against Jensen. He just threw himself to the floor under no real contact. Credit the referee, he didn't give the free kick, and had Brentford scored from that position, Veltman would have looked a little bit silly.
He would have, yeah. Defenders have learned over the last few years how to show that they've been fouled, but you've got to do it at the right moment, and the referee wasn't having it. He's trying to let as much as he can go this evening, Andy Madley.
Yeah, it's keeping the game flowing nicely. There's a cross from the right-hand side by Veltman. Just had Mark Flekken scrambling, and he had to gather the ball at the second attempt under pressure. He's now looked to release Toney over the top, and again, exquisite control from Toney. He's had a very cameo role in this game so far, but when he's got on the ball, he's really showing his class.
He has. I mean, that's a long punt upfield there from Mark Flekken. It's gone 2/3 of the field, and Toney just watches that come down onto his foot, takes it down, and then rolls it to a teammate as if it was a 5-yard pass. It really was superb from Toney. But as you say, a bit of a cameo role, just a couple of link-up moments for Toney so far. But he can do that. He can drift out of the game, and then as long as he's in the right place at the right time, he'll certainly look to take his chance.
Absolutely. As Brentford in possession, Christopher Ajer just rolls it across to Matthias Zanke Jorgensen on the right-hand side. to Janelt, who's recovered from that little knock he picked up. He's played it up towards Roslev, who can't quite link up with the young Ukrainian Yehor Yarmolyuk. Igor Julio now has it for Brighton, and he's happy to go back towards Bart Verbruggen, who will clip not a long ball forward. It's an aim pass towards Adingra, but that's been cut out by Jorgensen. It will now break to Adingra in the centre circle. He'll work it out to the right-hand side with Veltman. Back into the Ivorian once more, and now Baleba. It's a stretch to get that one under control, but was able to do so. Gross now on the left-hand side, inside Brentford's half. Just slows things down, the German, before linking up with Adam Lallana. Pedro getting involved down this left-hand side as well, and he might try and take on Mads Roslev, who stands him up. Instead, Pedro will exchange passes with Gross once more. Methodical build-up play from Brighton. Gross now reverses it to João Pedro, corner of the box, went for the little give and go with Lallana, who wasn't quite on the same wavelength, and the attack for Brighton breaks down.
Does break down, but they are still looking a lot more confident on the ball. When Brentford get forward, it's more in a sort of counter-attacking style, trying to get a quick pass into Tony or Wissa. Brighton are far more confident just to try and keep the ball and build something in midfield.
Buonanotte into Lallana, now into João Pedro on the edge of the box. He's got 3 red and white shirts around him. Aya gets a touch on the ball, but it's still worked out to Adingra, and now back in towards Igor. He's asking for a bit of movement down the left-hand side. He gets it from Gross, who might look to cross in with Iverfoot, and he links up with Lallana. It's good, intricate play from Brighton, but again, just can't seem to find that final pass, that final bit of quality to break down this Brentford back line that's sitting deep. The back 3, back 4, if you like, camped inside their own penalty areas. Gross looks to play it into Buonanotte. Buonanotte trying to get round Jorgensen, who stands his ground well, and now Brentford should be able to play their way out from the back. Yarmolyuk shows good composure, and Roslev will clip it up towards halfway.
He does, and it's taken down there by Wissa into Jensen, and all of a sudden Brentford have half a chance of getting into the Brighton half.
Yeah, Jensen has it, rolls it to Yarmolyuk once again. Was half an opportunity there for Brentford to maybe push forward on the counter-attack. They've slowed it down, but importantly have retained possession. Janelt, that's a good pass into Wissa. Wissa around the corner. Now Tony bursts into life. He's into the box. He's away from Van Hecke. Left-footed shot. He was just off balance as he went for that there. Maybe there was a little touch from Van Hecke. Tony, to his credit, was determined to stay on his feet, and in the end, the shot, because he was losing his footing, because he was off balance, was little more than a back pass.
Well, I'm looking at this first replay here, Tom, because to me, as you say, he's losing his balance, but then I think he has enough time to recover that balance. Van Hecke is still sort of down on one knee, and Tony just sort of rolls the ball at the goalkeeper, when actually I think he's still got enough time to stand up straight and just whack it with his left foot, and I think he would have had half a chance of scoring.
Yeah, he could have done there, looking at the replay. A little bit of panic maybe setting in, not quite aware after that touch. He thinks he's got to take that quickly, otherwise the defender, as you probably expect, would be around him. But he did have that yard or two just to compose himself and maybe get a cleaner strike towards goal. And had he done so, you'd have probably backed him to find the back of the net. It's now Brighton coming forward. Lallana, good poise from him. Out to João Pedro, left-hand side, inside the penalty area, onto his right foot, right-footed shot towards the left-hand corner of the goal. Similarly to Tony at the other end, actually, the final shot lacked conviction.
It does lack conviction, and it's the wrong choice, I think, from João Pedro. I mean, there's always that scope that you're trying to catch out the keeper at the near post, so I understand what he's doing there, but surely if you just lean back and go for the top corner on the opposite side of the goal, there's less chance of Flekken getting on the end of that one.
33 minutes have been played in this game. We're bringing you independent off-due studio commentary. It is still Brentford 0, Brighton 0, but one or two signs that the gaps are starting to open up, and one or two more chances are being created at both ends of the field. Nice little touch there from Lallana for Brighton into Baleba, and out to Buonanotte on the right-hand side. Naturally wants to drift in the young South American onto his left foot. Finds Gross. Out to Adingra. He's got pace and skill. He steps inside Roslev. Rolls a good pass into the feet of Buonanotte, who gets a shot away from the edge of the box. That one had a little bit more venom than the strike from João Pedro a minute earlier. But again, comfortable save for Mark Flekken.
It is a comfortable save, but I think that's probably the first hard shot we've seen in the game. I think if we could describe it that way, it's straight down the middle. So unless it had a bit more of a bobble on it, I wouldn't have expected it to have troubled Mark Flekken. But yeah, Brighton are finding those gaps and that possession to actually test Brentford, whereas the home side almost playing like the away side on the counter right now.
Yeah, it's one of those. We're starting to see a few more shots. I think the XG statistics for people who follow that would still be quite low for the respective two sides. And
yes, it's 0.1 for Brentford and 0.05 for Brighton. But that, I'm assuming that's just not been updated for a minute or two, because in the last few minutes, Brighton have actually seen a bit more of the ball.
Yeah, there's been a couple
But there's just not been any dangerous effort, though, really.
No,
that's the thing.
A couple of efforts on target where they perhaps could have done a little bit better. Certainly the João Pedro one, but yeah, nothing particularly stand out thus far. But it remains very delicately poised and very intriguing as Lewis Dunk, inside the centre circle, the Brighton captain, rolls it into the feet of Adam Lallana and across to Jan-Paul van Hecke. He does like to carry the ball forward from the back, and he can bring it 10-15 yards. Rolls it into the feet of João Pedro, now Buonanotte. Patient approach again from Brighton. Duncan, Van Hecke exchanging passes. Van Hecke again midway inside the Brentford half, tentatively bringing the ball forward, almost trying to lure a press towards him, and then he steps up, goes through the gear, steps forward, moves it onto his left foot, and does get a shot towards goal that takes a big deflection and goes behind, I believe, for the game's first corner.
Yes, it has taken a while, hasn't it, for us to see a set piece in this game. We can see now Roberto De Zerbi and his coaching staff. Yeah, confirmation of what Tom just said is absolutely right. This is the first corner kick, 35.5 minutes it's taken. But it just shows you the way that Van Hecke was quite comfortable to step forward, almost as an attacking midfielder there, to have a shot and win his side the set piece, which will now be whipped in by Gross. In fact, it's a short one.
Yeah, he's gone short to Lallana, who stands the ball up towards the far post, headed away by Nathan Collins. It will come to Buonanotte on the right-hand corner of the Brentford penalty area. He lifts it towards the far post. Too much on it, though, from Buonanotte. He puts his hands up in apology as, again, a decent opening for Brighton, or potential opening, comes to nothing.
Yeah, it's sadly been a feature of this game that even when things are looking a little bit brighter, where the pace of the game and the possession just seems to be a bit more attack-minded, both sides have been lacking in terms of their distribution, I think, this evening. The long balls, the crossfield balls have been a little bit off at times tonight.
Yeah, there's not been that quality, that final ball into the box. There hasn't been a clear opening really created. You notice a lot of the efforts towards goal, certainly over recent minutes, have been coming from the edge of the penalty area into the final 10 minutes of the first half. It's one of the main reasons why we are still goalless. Brighton still shading things you'd probably suggest in terms of possession and territory, but Brentford have that threat on the counter-attack as Tony lifts a searching ball over the top towards Wissa, who's fighting to get it under control. He digs out a decent cross, looking to wrap his right foot around it. It was just a little bit too close to Bart Verbruggen. A bit more on that pull-back, and Matthias Jensen might have had a chance, but Brighton have been able to deal with it. But now, though, the Seagulls trying to play their way out from the back, and again, that Brentford press is notable. It's picked up by Jorgensen for the home side. Into Tony. Down to Wissa. The angle's gone against him on the right-hand side. He clips across into the box. It's beyond Tony. And well dealt with, actually, at the far stick by Joel Veltman, who takes no chances and puts it out for a corner.
He does put it out for a corner. I did see Andy Madley, just as that ball was being put out, having a long look at his linesman. So I'm just wondering if potentially there's been a delayed offside, because Wissa, his shoulder might have just gone offside when that initial pass was played to him. Just waiting for confirmation now, and I think it has been given as a free kick in the end.
Yeah, it was tight, but yeah, probably Wissa was just offside. Certainly, if the ball would end up in the back of the net, I think VAR would have intervened. So no corner, free kick instead to Brighton that they've sent up to the halfway line, but Brentford have quickly turned possession back over, and Lewis Potter will go back to his goalkeeper Mark Flekken on the edge of the penalty area. Elsewhere in the Premier League, Arsenal still leading Luton by 1-0 thanks to that Martin Odegaard strike. Manchester City versus Aston Villa kick off in about 7 minutes time, a 8:15 start at the Etihad Stadium. Our game ticking down towards half time, though, as Vitaly Janelt in possession for Brentford inside his own half, links up with Jensen. Now Christopher Ayer. Real press from Brighton when the Brentford defenders are on the ball. Ayer gets it back from Janelt once again. Out he goes to Jorgensen. Janelt will send it forward up towards the halfway line. Yarmoliuk will go back into defence once more. It's Brentford's turn to have a little period of possession. Jensen, that's not the best ball forward from him, though. Doesn't give Wissa a chance, and it's been won back by Lewis Dunk for Brighton. Now Adam Lallana can turn. Little 1-2 between himself and João Pedro. Lallana now into Gross, back towards Baleba. João Pedro again dropping deep to get involved, this time out towards the right-hand side where he can find Veltman. Back into Carlos Baleba once again. Now Igor. I think of a strike towards goal. He does. the Brazilian. I think it was going way off target, but Christopher Ajer wasn't. Gets in the way of the striker and deflects it behind for a corner.
Just goes to show how ambitious Brighton are. They've won themselves a corner, but it's not enough. Igor Julio's having to explain and apologise almost because there were probably 3 or 4 teammates in far better positions who were waiting for a pass there.
Yeah, it's not really the Brighton way to be striking in that kind of position when there are better options to play. But Igor has won the corner for his side and he's moved into the penalty area. Pascal Gross went short with the last delivery. An outswinger this time if he is going to go directly into the box, which he does. Aims it towards Lewis Dunk on the penalty spot, who gets his head to the ball. It's not convincingly dealt with by Mark Flekken. Under pressure from João Pedro. Flekken has had to push the ball out to the right-hand side where it's picked up by the corner taker Gross. He'll feed it into Buonanotte onto his left foot. Strike towards goal. Again, takes a big deflection. And it'll go behind, I think, for another corner.
Well, Brentford are unhappy. They feel as though there may have been a deflection of a Brighton player before that ball went out. But we'll see this first effort here. I mean, that clearly comes off Collins. So I don't know why Brentford. I mean, there must have been the initial challenge on the goalkeeper Flekken that they weren't happy about, because there's no doubt that should be another corner kick. And it was an unusual one there, Flekken. He felt like he had to do something, but he just hesitated for a second, and that allowed João Pedro to jump in. But it's another corner now until. We're about to see that corner kick, but the referee's just seeing a bit of pushing and shoving there all round about the penalty spot.
Yeah, that's where Lewis Dunk, Jan-Paul van Hecke and João Pedro, the primary targets for this delivery, are gathered. Again, it's Pascal Gross standing over the ball. This time it's an in-swinger from the Brighton left, and it's a decent ball into the box, well dealt with by Nathan Collins. Tony can flick it further clear, and then Jensen puts his left foot through the ball and sends it up towards halfway, testing the control of Veltman now, and it really well done by the Dutchman. We've seen some really good touches in this game so far, notably from Ivan Toney, but that was right up there from Joel Veltman, who now maybe less gracefully just steers the ball left-footed down the Brighton right-hand channel, but pressure on Ajer, and it's good play from João Pedro, who's picked the pocket of the Brentford defender. He's going to have to do it all himself at the moment. João Pedro, who again steps away from Ajer. He's into the penalty area, looks to dig out a cross, which is eventually cut out by a Brighton defender. Ajer was getting back, and his deflection takes it into the grateful gloves of Mark Flekken.
Well, that was poor from Ajer initially. He eventually gets his body in the way, and Flekken helps him out, and Brentford recover. But that was a little bit too hopeful from Ajer there. He just felt as though he could steer the ball away from João Pedro, but João Pedro is too strong and too quick to just let that one go.
Yeah, he's a really good, powerful centre forward. He's not the tallest or quickest, but he is good at both. He wouldn't define him as a big man or a speedster, but he's certainly not lacking in either of those departments. As Baleba now bringing the ball forward for Brighton with a bit of purpose. It's Gross into Lallana, edge of the box, fancies a left foot drive. That certainly had Mark Flekken scrambling to his right hand side. The shot count is starting to creep up for Brighton as we tick down towards the end of this first half, but they're still just struggling to find that finishing quality.
They're not getting efforts on target, but what they are doing is they are certainly showing they are the better side now. They are in the ascendancy, taking this whole first half into consideration. We're at 42 minutes now, and I don't think I can give Brentford more than 10 minutes in this first half, and that's probably being generous as well. I think that overall Brighton have been far more confident on the ball, and whilst the first 25 minutes or so they struggled to create chances, they are starting to make those now, and I think Brentford will be quite happy just to see half-time at 0-0.
Although they are coming forward now, the Bees. Jensen, though, just dwells in possession and maybe a little fortunate to get the free kick of Andy Madley. Carlos Baleba penalised. Brighton starting this game in 9th, 15 points better off than Brentford, down in 15th. They also won the reverse meeting the Seagulls earlier in the season at the Amex, a 2-1 victory back in December. 3-3 draw in the meeting before that. I think we were quite hopeful that we might get something like that this evening. We still might, but at the moment it is goalless. It's not goalless though at the Emirates Stadium, as Arsenal have doubled their lead against Luton.
They have indeed, and it's Reece Nelson with the goal, getting on the score sheet just before half-time after Odegaard's goal on 24. It's now Nelson on 44 minutes. Arsenal are comfortable now against Luton.
Yeah, 2-0, and looking well placed to return to the top of the Premier League standings. Mikel Arteta's side, at least for a night, with Liverpool in action against Sheffield United tomorrow. We just had a delay to the taking of this Brentford free kick, as Matthias Jensen was just receiving a little bit of treatment, but we will now see the set piece for Thomas Frank's side and a chance to get the ball into the box. I mentioned that they are a side that have plenty of aerial threats at Brentford, and this free kick's 10 yards inside the Brighton half, but it'll be taken by goalkeeper Mark Flekken, who stands it up towards the far post, where it's Jorgensen who wins his aerial duel, looking to knock it down for Ivan Toney. It wasn't too far away from finding the intended target. It does run through into the gloves of Brentford Bruggen, but wasn't the worst idea in the world.
Wasn't the worst, but the header, it almost looked like a direct header, didn't it? He needed to just cushion that one a little bit, trying to get a bounce on it before Wissa got there. On this occasion, Bruggen clears it quickly, trying to pick out João Pedro. And Brighton, well, I was going to say they do keep possession, but Jensen does well to rob the ball of Carlos Baleba.
Yeah, Moliuk now has it for Brentford, and he can just slow things down. Igor was reluctant to go with the press. Moliuk will find Collins and will be worked forward down the left-hand side, where flicked around the corner first time by Toney, who found himself in the left-back position momentarily. There's then a foul in the middle of the park on Lewis Dunk by Yoan Wissa, so free kick into the final 10 seconds of the 45. Probably be a couple of minutes to add on for stoppages, but not an awful lot as Adingra down the Brighton left feeds it into Pascal Gross. 1 minute is what the fourth official has allocated at the end of this first period then. Still a little bit of time as Brighton look to come forward. Gross to Adingra. Cross takes a deflection. Doesn't quite break for Lallana. You're not made sure of that. And then Toney battling to get hold of the ball. He doesn't quite... Well, he wasn't able to do so. And Baleba gets a shot away. It's a speculative effort on the half volley that didn't really have any power. Looked like it was going wide of the target, but Mark Flekken, not quite sure why. Maybe he lost his bearings, but he's fumbled that behind for a corner.
He has. I mean, he's essentially tried to, rather than pushing the ball away from the post, he's almost tried to sort of stop the ball, sort of put his hands on it, and then it slid off and gone off for a corner, when really, if he hadn't dived and just let it go, it would have gone out for a goal kick. We'll be talking about the end of the first half now, but as it is, with seconds to go with injury time, Brighton still have a corner.
Yeah, a couple of nervy moments towards the end of this first half for the Brentford goalkeeper. Will he be punished for the latest of those as Gross lifts the corner into the box, looking for Van Hecker? A couple of bodies go down in the area. It comes to Adingra, who, again, it's an effort towards goal from a Brighton player that lacks real conviction, and it's a routine save for Flekken, who holds on this time. He'll bowl the ball out to Yarmoliuk on the right-hand side. He's pressed by Adingra, and he actually does well to hold on to the ball before shifting it back to his goalkeeper once again. This time Flekken will work it out to the left, and the referee will bring the first half to a close. Yes, he will. There's just a delay on the whistle there from Andy Madley. But yeah, the half-time whistle has now gone, and at the break, it is goalless. Brentford 0, Brighton 0. Oh, in fact, is he going across to check the VAR? Everyone thought that he'd blown his half-time whistle there, Andy Madley, but he's actually stopped play because he's going to look at his monitor. We're just going to find out exactly why, Paul, but drama at the end of this first half.
This is very confusing for me. I mean, is this a penalty for Brighton? Wissa was holding on to Lewis Dunk. Lewis Dunk initially holding on to Wissa, but the fact that Andy Madley's been told to look at this tells me this is probably going to be a penalty for Brighton. And controversy. I mean, the amount of holding on you see in the Premier League every week. It just seems to me it's a bit of a surprise that this one has been picked out. I mean, I don't think Dunk's ever getting on the end of that ball anyway, but there we go. It's going to be a penalty here to Brighton, I think.
Yeah, referee steps away from the monitor, puts his whistle to his mouth. Is he going to signal for a penalty? He's beckoning as someone towards him. He hasn't done the signal that he is going to be pointing to the spot. Instead, he's speaking to Lewis Dunk. Is he explaining his decision to the Brighton captain? Has he pointed to the spot now, or has he given actually a free kick? Is he suggesting that the first offence, the first bit of grabbing on was by Dunk? This is very confusing. The referee...
Well, I mean, a collector's item, a situation where the referee seemed to be blowing for half-time, then he checked a VAR decision, and now I think he's basically told all the players involved in that whole VAR situation why the penalty's not been given. He seemed to be pointing at Dunk, saying, you started the foul, then Wissa's come back at you, and that's why I don't think the penalty's going to be given.
I actually think he's right as well, Andy Madley. It's a little bit confusing the way he's got to the decision, and a very strange end to the first half as the referee does now blow for the half-time whistle. I'll pause just slightly, but yeah, he has now blown. It's goalless, no penalty for Brighton. A really controversial end to the first half. Brentford 0, Brighton 0.